Right, so what we're going to do is just go through a series of different areas, and these guys are going to share some of their experiences and thoughts with us, which will be really interesting. So what I wanted to understand first of all, though, is what's important to each of us when it comes to our own personal professional journeys. So the Washington Post in 19, oh my God, see, that shows how old I am and why I'm here, wrong there, okay, 2022. So last year, the Washington Post reported on what women consider most important, and this is in the context of when they're looking for a new role, but I can't imagine it's that different to actually looking at the role they're in at the moment as well. And topping the list was a greater work-life balance at 66%, followed by compensation and benefits, which not surprisingly is in the top 5. They also wanted to find a job that allows them to do what they do best with 62%, then stability and job security, and finally in 5th place, it was working for an organisation that was truly diverse and inclusive. Okay, so question to each of you really, just really interested to understand whether these findings resonate with you, and what are you personally looking for as part of your professional journey? So Nes.
All right, so yes, is the short answer. It does resonate with me. Work-life balance is a big one. So a lot of my choices in my early career was about being able to fit it around my family. I'm married, I have 3 children, so that was really important to me. And then the second one is being able to do what I do best. So that's part of the reason why I am in the role that I am right now, is just being given that opportunity to use all my skills. So that's a big one for me as well.
Okay, great. Steffi.
I'd agree with all those points. Work-life balance is very important. Although I'm younger and I don't necessarily have a family, there's things I want to do outside of work that I need to have time for. Somewhere that's diverse is very important, because then you can go somewhere. Sometimes there's more older people than young people and you want someone to relate to. But also something important for me is having a positive workspace that wasn't written in this thing. So somewhere where, everyone's interested, everyone's working towards the same goal is very important. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to disagree with any of the factors that were called out. I'd definitely also call out work-life balance as being one that's really important to me. Similar to what Steffi said, I think I'm at that sort of stage in my life where I don't have too many responsibilities. So it's great just having the chance to be able to make the most of that and do the travel that I want to be able to do. I think the one that didn't come through that I was maybe surprised not to see was one around personal development and growth and the ability to get stretched within your role. I think being at that sort of foundational point in your career, having the opportunity to learn and progress through your role is something that's been really important to me.
Okay, great. Mathilda.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to add to that. Probably, for me personally, meaningfulness is really important. I feel that I can be somewhere I can make a difference if it's what I'm personally interested in or at the place I'm in. And then having a role model or someone to look up to. I mean, I'm lucky I have fantastic colleagues in the back of the room, and obviously Jax, and I think that's really key for me to get to the office.
Okay, so it's interesting that you're talking about role models there. So moving on to that, Nes, what behaviours and characteristics do you think make a senior woman an effective role model in today's business world?
Right, I think one of the key things for me is authenticity. It's just being relatable, right? So I think that's a big thing, because I need to be able to see myself in this person and see that they're human, see that they have flaws, and they've kind of made it through. I used to say, I coined a term a few months ago, which is leader watching. I just watch other women and kind of see, well, they're as nervous as I would be in that meeting, but they're getting through it. So I think that authenticity coming through is really, really important to me. So yeah, that's one of my big ones.
Okay. And Steffi, have you had anybody who you've seen as a role model over the course of your career and has perhaps positively influenced any decisions that you make or actions that you've taken?
Yeah, so there's been many positive role models that I've had. A lot of them have shown me, taking on feedback isn't always a bad thing. It might be something you need to improve upon, but that's something you can take into consideration. You want to, like you've said, see yourself in that role model, and you want to be able to relate to what they're doing. I've had lots of people where they've, show me unusual ways of facing challenges and finding a new way around something, learning from mistakes and, you know, learning how to come back from that. And the resilience is very important.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit more. What do you mean? We know what we mean by resilience, but what's that look like for you in terms of when you've seen other women demonstrate that, and how's that helped you?
So there's been times where I've seen one of my role models, and it's also happened to myself, where you've had an issue with maybe the pay is not quite as what it should be with someone else, and they've had, you know, the courage and resilience to stick up for themselves and say, you know what, this is not okay. And I really look up to that person. I'm like, do you know, it's not okay. And if that happened to me, I'd like to think that I would be able to, you know, say that as well. And I did, following on from a role model previously.
Okay, so interesting, that ties into your point there about authenticity. So is it helping you to be your authentic self at work without wanting to put words into your mouth? No,
definitely, I would agree with that. It's allowing me to be, you know, authentic like you are to yourself, and showing that you are worth what you're worth, you know, is we especially as ladies, we sometimes tend to put ourselves down and be like, you know, I'm not that good at that, I'm not that good at this, but we have to be like, do you know what, I am quite good at it, and I'm going to show you that I am, even though people don't always give you the opportunities to do that. You need to be able to say, I can do it, or put your hand up and say, you know, I'm adding now to resilience, courage, authenticity, all of it. But yeah, lots of things I've seen that, you know, I've taken on myself.
Okay, great. And Jess, just to bring you in as well, do you see enough female role models at a senior level?
I think it's something I've seen change quite significantly in the period of time that I've been working. So I've been at Experian for 5 years now, and I've definitely seen in just that 5-year period a real shift. I think when I started, the answer would probably be no. Okay. Although I feel quite fortunate that probably working in an HR space, again, it tends to be stereotypically quite a lot of females within that space. So maybe in more of my direct roles, I've had those role models, but I think when I first started out, I didn't necessarily see those. I think increasingly now we're getting to a place where I am seeing more and more of those role models that I relate to.
And is that the same for the three of you? I didn't ask you, but Steffi and Ness, in terms of visibility of women at a senior level, and is that important to you?
Yes. So I remember the first time I went to do my interview for Ministry of Justice, and I turned up into the interview and I saw a woman who looked like me, and I was gobsmacked. And I think that really motivated me, and really gave me the courage to keep going, and I'm still there. And that was really, really important to see someone like that at a senior role. And there's more and more of that happening, especially in the digital space where we are, and I think that makes a difference. For example, our CDI Chief Digital Information Officer, I'm trying to not do acronyms, is a woman, and it makes a lot of difference to see someone like that in that role.
Yeah. Anything that you wanted to add, Steffi?
I would just say that the same for me. So I had an interview when I joined British Airways, and it was a female, and I was pleasantly surprised. You know, when you're a bit like, you don't expect it, especially in a tech space. But there are some female leaderships where we are, but sometimes the levels you've got to climb to get to that female, it tends to quite be male heavy. So yeah, it relates to me, but there's still some work to be done, I would say.
Okay. So a formalisation of that role model is taking it into a mentoring relationship where it's more focused on your development and learning, to make your point about that from the beginning. I'm going to jump to you for obvious reasons, because we've got Ashley sat in the audience who has introduced us to Jess this evening, and your mentor is Ashley, isn't it?
Yes.
How's that relationship impacted on your experiences and development over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I think mentorship has been a really important part of my journey at work. I've been fortunate to connect with a number of different mentors who've really helped me. I think, looking at Ashley specifically, the role that she's really helped me, and I'd probably say is a bit of a two-part piece. So I think Ashley and I first connected because she's got a real expertise in an area that I really didn't have that expertise in, and I wanted to develop into. So obviously Ashley's got a huge amount of experience in technology transformation. I was stepping into a role that was going to require me from an HR perspective to be partnering with a space in that technology transformation. and it felt like an entirely different language to me, quite a male-dominated environment. So partnering up with somebody like Ashley, who was able to be that role model and who was able to share a lot of knowledge and sort of coach me through that situation, has been really, really beneficial to me. I think the other part that I'd say Ashley has been really able to play sort of steps into more of that sponsorship type sphere. So I definitely feel that when I'm not in the room and Ashley has the opportunity to be in sort of bigger rooms than me, given her role and her experience, she's there sort of talking about opportunities for me to be able to step in and really opening up other rooms and other doors for me to be able to go through to. And I've absolutely seen, probably even the role that I'm stepping into now, those sorts of opportunities maybe come around because of that advocacy that I've been able to get through that relationship, which is amazing.
Question to you, even though this isn't a reverse mentoring role, what do you gain from that relationship?
I love it. So I worked through 4 years nearly, and I've had the opportunity of Experian. I've got a really busy job still, and I'm running a digital transformation program across the whole business. But I'm at the stage of my career where I've taken the time and been given the opportunity to actually do some other things as well as just drive really important delivery programs and execute stuff. So I've consciously taken the time to take a number of mentees on, and some have been short term ones, some have been a little bit longer, and they're not all female. I've got a guy in procurement that I mentor as well, in technology, he's in procurement, but his path constantly asked whether I'd mentor him, and I said yes. But for me, I just think that, you know, the world's changed a lot since I started working in technology 30 years ago, and I think the opportunities are very different now as well. I've got a daughter as well, just to be clear, who's similar age to Jess. But for me, it's the chance to help people, to spend time with people, and actually the conversations we have now are quite different because Jess has changed her role and she's kind of working in my transformation program now, which she wasn't before. So it's almost in this, we're having this relationship now, which is still that sponsorship. It's an interesting terminology to use. So sponsorship, I'm still a mentor, but we've got lots of real conversation to talk about. And you know, with each of my people that I mentor now, they're all in quite different roles. I just really thoroughly enjoy it. And I love that challenge and pushback. To see people that are super engaged, you know, really want to drive their careers forward. I mean, I had some great mentors in my career. There weren't very many women in technology, in fact. I was probably always the one single person, woman in technology, but I had some great male mentors throughout my career. I think it's great that we're able to pivot that the other way now. And I really enjoy our conversations, really enjoy it. I've got 3 at the moment, and I love every single one, and every single one is completely different. You know, technology procurement is very different to what Jess does for a living within an HR business partner role. And then my other person I mentor works in the risk environment. Again, very, very completely different. And she's female, a young female. But it's fascinating. And they're all at different stages of careers. And it's educating me back a little bit as well. And it's making, when I'm sitting within senior sessions and leadership sessions, I've got a very different perspective of the way that people are perceiving the business, the leadership team, the organisation, the constraints, the things that we need to be looking at as a leadership team as well. So yeah, I love it. And I probably will take on more. But again, mine aren't all, they're not always long term, they're short term as well. And we do advocate that Experian. It doesn't have to be a really long relationship. One of the ladies I sponsor, she was on a development program which I was part of the selection process for. We don't officially have a mentor relationship anymore because she's finished the program and we carried on. So that's the kind of stuff that we do in Experian. And I think there's quite a lot of it that takes place. People are really, really supportive of the program, formal and informal ways of doing it.
So it sounds like you wholeheartedly recommend.
I love it. I think it's really great. Yeah, and I really carve out the time to do it now.
What would your advice be to somebody who's quite tempted and intrigued by it, would love to kind of help someone else in their career, in terms of what first steps would be sensible to take, and also how do you balance it when you're feeling like you've got a full job anyway? How on earth do you balance out your role with 3 mentees?
I do move the diary around quite a lot, so I'll be honest about that. So my lady who looks after Jerry looks after my clients, is very good at moving it. But I think that, and also what's quite interesting, Jess and I have 2 different conversations. So So we have a mentor conversation, and then we have a work conversation now. We realised partway through our relationship, actually they were merging, so we've separated them out. But I think you've just got to, if you're going to make a commitment, you've got to stick to the commitment. And someone's expecting you to show up, right? And you've got to show up and forget about all the baggage you've got for the day and focus in on that person and what they want from you on that session. When I first have relationships with people, we talk about what are the objectives, what do they want to achieve out of the relationship. Once you've got to know someone, you then understand where they're working, what their challenges are, and there's a conversation that flows. But you'd be quite relaxed about it. If you try to be too strict about what you're trying to do, I think it's not very natural. You use the word authentic, and for me, one thing that I am is extremely authentic. What you see is what you get. I'm very confident and quite resilient in what I do, but I wasn't like that 20 years ago. I built that level of resilience and confidence up, but I think that it's got to be an authentic relationship both ways, completely. And at the point that it isn't, I think you kind of almost go. One of the other things we do some external mentoring as well. So I've done a program, as part of a program where I was a mentor to a lady who worked for Aviva. So that was a cross-company program. That was fascinating. I've got quite a few products with Aviva, so I was kind of tuning in on trying to learn about. But no, it was fascinating. A very different relationship again, because it's a different business. So, and she was going through a stage where she thought she wanted to change her role. She thought she wanted to move to technology, which is why it was matched to her. And again, we're talking about similar challenges in different organisations. Someone's life, think, are they going to make a change or not? But within a completely different company. And that worked really well. We still talk to each other, even though it's not a formal mentor program.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to equality, diversity and inclusivity. So, we see stats, we read reports, organisations that get this right and embrace it have greater performance, talent retention, and so on and so forth, right? And we all want to be part of organisations like that. Mathilda, how has your unique identity, you've got a different journey to many people in the room, and experience influence your career journey and perspectives?
Wow, there's a lot in there. I think from a personal point of view, you build resilience, like you said, and a lot of patience and respect for a lot of different type of people, ways of doing things, and diversity when it comes to thinking and being, not only diversity to the more obvious roles like gender, I would say. You need to be quite tough, because quite often you might be the odd one out. If you have a little bit of a different background, then you need to have quite a lot of strength and believe in yourself, and that's when it helps back to that mentorship of having someone to look up to or someone you can identify with. That would probably be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Steffi, what do you see as the most significant barriers to diversity and inclusivity in today's world?
So aside from the gender one that we just spoke about also, it's kind of one that's at the forefront of all our minds. But just from a personal perspective, I think there's an inclusivity gap in people who maybe have either learning difficulties or a disability or something like that. And, the access isn't always there for them. So someone in my family has dyslexia and dyspraxia, and what he has access to in his role, yes, my brother, C is a he, he doesn't have access to that, and when provided support, it's almost like a hindrance. So I think not only does, F have to go into, the gender gap, a bit like that, but, give those type of people a chance. Don't dismiss them at their, just for their interview because they've written that they have a disability kind of thing. So I think there's a little bit of a gap there that needs to be worked on as well.
I think that people who are teenage and in their early 20s are generationally different to, how do I even say that? Traditional people, whatever. There's an age thing where I think as younger people are coming into the workforce, they have a very different view on some of those hidden disabilities that you're talking about, and they just don't see it as a big deal at all. So I think although we're impatient and we want to see these shifts happen really quickly. I think that there will be an element of organic nature to the change here, and it is coming and it will happen. But of course, we still want to try and encourage that sooner in terms of hiring.
Yeah, for sure. I've set up like a women in tech space as well, and people are free. It's a safe space for them to talk about these type of things as well, until we all get to that stage where it becomes, you know, the norm.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And Ness, we talked before, there's something that you talk about which I find really interesting, which is about celebrating people's differences and encouraging people to be themselves. So again, the authenticity piece, and find their own way to lead and do things you talked about.
People perform their best when they are happy. People are happiest when they're being themselves. A lot of it is coming from my own personal journey. There can be a tendency sometimes to think that for me to succeed at something, I need to be a certain way. So there's a way that moms are supposed to be. You know, you're supposed to be, you know, cuddle babies and stuff like that. I'm not like that. I have 3, and that's about right for me. And then maybe in leadership, you know, maybe you're supposed to be an extrovert. You know, you should be able to do the whole networking thing. It should come naturally. And that used to be a barrier for me in my mind, because I am a card-carrying introvert, right? So, and there was always this thing where I felt like, ooh, I can't, you know, I probably couldn't be that kind of leader because I am more quiet, more reserved, more thoughtful, that sort of thing. But I think I've grown into the confidence of being able to understand that, well, the world needs people like me. And the workplace needs people like me, and I've seen it play out quite a bit, and you know, it's kind of giving me that confidence that we do need everyone in a team. If everyone's optimistic and loud, no one's ever going to get anything done. Or we'll all be very, very optimistic, and no one's ever going to ask the question, well, is it going to work? You know, so some of us are the quality control of the world. So, so that's something I'm quite passionate about. Whether you're learning, leading, whatever you're doing, you'll do it best if you're doing it yourself. So doing it the way you know, that's authentic.
Yeah. And it's less tiring as well if you're being your authentic.
Exactly.
When you're not being your
yeah,
authentic
because
self.
you know, it's almost as if you're always acting. And if you're trying to fit into a certain mold.
Yeah.
And certainly even in my personal life, when I got to the point where I was able to accept the fact that I wasn't necessarily that cuddly mom sort of person. I called my children, I said, well, this is the mom you got. I really I don't remember to hug people, so if you need a hug, ask for it. So my kids will normally do this, Mom, can I have a hug? Every 5 minutes, and it became a thing. But, you know, that really, really helped me, and I've taken it into work and everywhere else, so that's my firm belief, yeah.
So, Jess, when we can read all sorts of things, right, about how organisations can become more diverse and inclusive, but in your experience and from what you've seen and what you feel, what would be the key things that you would say organisations need to focus on or address?
I think it's so much of what we've already just discussed here. So I think one of the big things is trying to just bring a diverse group of people around the table. So we know there's so much research that says when you've got more diverse people around the table, you get sort of more diverse decisions and all of that. So I think that's a really important part. I think being authentic, just as we've said, is also really important. So people tend to share and be more open about their own experiences if you're sort of that person that's being forthcoming as well. So I think it's great if we can be forthcoming and encourage others to be forthcoming in that sense as well. I think one of the other things that we've maybe recently started doing at Experian a bit more is utilising some of the network groups that we maybe have to bring forward more of that diversity as well. So we're really fortunate that we've got a couple of established groups from sort of women through to different neurodiversity populations, sort of really spanning that whole range of diversity. And I think historically we've maybe sort of left them in their pockets doing their own things, having their own celebrations, but really bringing them into the discussion and working with them as we're going through from decision making, I think has been a really great way for us to change forward. I think the final thing I'd say, and it's a bit of a boring, bland HR topic, so I'll apologise, but just making sure that the policies and the frameworks that we have in place enable that diversity as well is really important. So having policies that enable various different flexibility options that you're maybe having, some of those can really be hindrances if they're not set up in the right way. So I think there's a couple of sort of health factors that you can have as well, which really help.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Now, we're going to move on to modern leadership, which is quite interesting that so many people chose the green dot. Where's Mairead? So, what do you reckon the percentage of people who got a green dot in the end was?
I think it could be 50.
50%? Oh, was it only 50%? Okay. But still majority, so quite interesting. So, when we talk about leadership in S&S and what modern leadership means, we talk about it not being about a title or position. We talk about it in terms of people using their influence to inspire and motivate and guide others towards shared goals. Right? And it's actually something Aidan talks about in his book, which you will read, or your daughter will tell you about when she reads his book, in his Future Business Formula book. So, Ness, first question to you. Can you share with us a time when you worked for an inspiring leader and what that looked like and felt like?
Okay. This feels a bit like trying to choose between my children because I have had quite a few inspiring leaders.
Oh, that's great. I mean, there's been the other experience as well. Because it's my current experience, just talk about the leaders that I work with in Justice Digital. So it was Sarah Brooks who recommended me for this. So our team used to sit in her space, and she was our deputy director. And then I must mention my direct boss, Stephen Kelly. And that's, I know we're a group of women, but, the men do a lot for us. And the thread that runs through this, I keep using the word authentic, they're quite real, right? And approachable. Things like that, and then inclusive, the kind of collaborative leadership where everyone, no matter what level you are in the team, everyone has a voice and everybody can feel comfortable about expressing themselves. And then there's another thing that's really, really resonates. There's a word or a phrase that we talk about a lot in our team, and that's radical candor. Just, understanding that this person has my back and will tell me the truth when I'm not getting things right. And also being able to show that they've also got things wrong and learn from it, and, it's not the end of the world. So I know I've listed quite a few things, but, that's what... those are some of the things that really, really inspire me, and that's probably why I'm still there right now. Yeah. Thank you. And Jess, from your perspective, what do you see these successful leaders doing differently? Is there anything that you can add to what Nessa said?
I think a lot of what you said I completely agree with, so sort of probably building on the different points you've just said, I think one that I see sort of really stands out as what's a great leader versus some of the good leaders that we maybe have is definitely the leaders that are empowering the people that they've got around them. So maybe not always being the one that's stepping forward and being the one to do that presentation, but encouraging people within their team to be the one to take the lead and to step forward. I think that's a great way to grow people, but I also think it's a really great sign of strong leadership when they're sort of trusting and building up that next group. And then probably a word just to summarise what you said as well around psychological safety. That's become a real buzzword in our organisation at the minute around how do you create that environment where everyone really feels safe to come forward and truly present themselves and be themselves, and to get things wrong and to accept that that's okay and to just try things out and just encourage a bit more of that innovation. So I think those are two really important parts in leadership.
Okay. And Steffi, how do you think leadership styles have had to adapt to developments in technology, remote working cultures, and all of the other rapidly changing environments that we work in business today?
Yes, I agree with the points that both of these are made, but also I think collaboration stuck out quite a lot, because with remote working, you used to be in the office, you do your team event and everyone is in the same room. But now you have to think about the people that want that work-life balance that we all really want, and have it so that, you know, the people at home feel just as included, or the people offshore feel just as included as those that are in the room with you. I think that as a leader, you should be the person that you want your other colleagues to be as well. I'm quite lucky because I have Liz, who phoned me for this, and she's quite a strong woman, and you know, she's in the office every day. She's on the same floor plate, the same as my current manager, Dan. I've said, can I set up this women in tech thing? They've gone, yeah, you do it. So they do the empowerment that has already been mentioned. And I think with everything changing, they have had to adapt. And some people maybe do it a little slower than others, but as long as they're willing to be open about where they have to adapt and accepting feedback, I think it's okay.
And so finally, to Mathilda, for the leaders in the audience today, of which we have many, what are the most important behaviours and values to hold dear?
Wow. Personally, for me, I really, and that's probably the Scandinavian in me, but I really appreciate honesty. Back to both the feedback aspect, positive and negative. Vulnerability is a massive one as well, especially if you expect someone, especially someone younger, to open up in an interview and share about your personal life and what you're doing. I would expect that back from someone who's senior, to also create that safe space for questions and development and all of that kind of thing. And kind of going back a topic, but diversity is a massive thing. It's something that needs to be talked about openly. It's something that needs to be discussed. I think diversity around the table will bring conflict, but that will bring better, more diverse solutions and creative solutions to problems that we're facing that we haven't solved before. So I appreciate those kind of conversations immediately, actually.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, guys. That was fascinating listening to you. We did want to create some time, just have some Q&A at this point though. So hands straight up. Go on, you got in there first.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, and I'm going to ask you slightly, I don't know whether it's controversial, but I just would really love your perspectives on this. So, I don't know how many of you have heard of the girl that went viral last week, or the week before, for the TikTok video about, I'm doing this 9 to 5, and I've got home, and I'm shattered, and I've got no time for anything else, and it really sucks. And I started working in the early 2000s, so late 40s, and I had an immediate reaction to that video. And at the same time, I remember, very much like you, in the early years of my career, that I actively pursued work-life balance because I studied law and French law, and all my friends went off to become lawyers and make loads of money, and I was like, it's blood, sweat and tears money, I'm going to go into research and policy development, right? But I was really conflicted seeing this video, because part of me was like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go through a bit of pain and discomfort, because that's what work life is sometimes, and it's not easy. Part of me was like, I'm totally behind the remote working and the hybrid working revolutions, because I see the value and the benefits to individuals and teams and the business that can come when that's managed well. And I guess I just wanted to get your sense of where you were at, if you saw that video or if you've heard about it. Because ultimately I feel it's about how do we learn from you to bridge a divide that we have in our perceptions, and how do we kind of share our perspectives with you to say that, hey, it can't be as easy as come and do this 9 to 5 and then walk away and do your yoga class and then go to bed and feel really cool about it. So I've been clumsy, right? And so I'm being clumsy, but on the basis that I'd just really love to share. I'd love to learn from your perspective.
So that's a great question. Thank you for that. Steffi, I'm going to turn to you. Is that all right?
Yeah, I've not seen the video, but I'll
okay.
kind of go with the flow.
Well,
no, I can go with
you can respond to the narrative.
So it's interesting, going on the back of the video of what you've said, I don't know if it's just because where I've come from, I grew up with just my mum, so I just had my mum and my brother, and I think, everything's evolved so much. If I saw that video, it'd be a little bit like, you haven't had to go, you're not going into the office a lot of the time, every single Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, which a lot of, the ladies in the room, we've had to do that. Like, I did it before COVID, you're in every day of the week. And a lot of people complain when they go into the office. And I'm like, it used to be the other way around, is that people had to go in the office. There was no option, to remote work, to work from home or work from another area. So I think if I saw it, I'd be a bit like, you don't know how lucky you are. And it's not from personal experience, it's from like what I've seen my mum do growing up, is that she's out all the time, I've gone from this house to that house. And I didn't mind that because I knew she had to go to work. If she had worked from home, I would have had a completely different upbringing. So I think sometimes in our generation, now I'm probably the minority because it went viral, I would just say, I don't think we realise how lucky we can be that we are able to remote work. So you can switch off, hopefully, at 4:30 or 5, and you can, get changed and go to your yoga class. You're not finishing at 5, having to go and get into a car to drive home in the traffic that's going to annoy you the hell out of you to get home. You haven't got to go to the office with, you're so angry you've had so much traffic that morning you can't think straight for the first hour. So it's unpopular probably my generation, but that's what I would think.
So I want to see your response, Mathilda, because you've grown up in a different country, right? Where there are very different ways of working. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts on that. I don't really know where to start, but I think it's great that we can have the discussion. I think that's a big first step, independent of what the opinion of it is. For me personally, work-life balance is not something that is balanced in one day. Like, it might be this project versus that one, or this month versus that one, or you find your balance in a different way. I can say that here. When I interviewed here, in my previous job, I didn't have a good work-life balance. My boss called me in the evenings. I was expected to be in emails all the time, and it drove me to exhaustion. And I learned from that. So when I was interviewing here at Sullivan Stanley, I said that I won't download Slack and emails to my personal phone, and that was okay. And I still don't have it, and it works out fine, I think. So there are conversations to have that are reasonable conversations to have. And again, back to the leadership thing, I think, if you're a patient and good leader, you can have a conversation of, maybe on this project or just around this deadline, I'd appreciate if you, check it. It's about being sensible.
It's about flexibility, right?
Yeah, and it's not only on your rules, kind of back to what Steph was saying.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. I'm going to, just because I am conscious that some people are very aware of their trains back tonight and so on, so I'd love to get another couple of questions in, and your hands up.
I was just going to build on
Okay.
the point, I think, a little bit as well, because I think that Mathilda's absolutely right. I think it's about having the right conversation with that individual around what do they value, what's important to them, and then set your boundaries around that. And if you're not feeling like your boundaries are being adhered to, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I think we've maybe popularised this perspective that, and maybe it's kind of the influencer generation a little bit, that's what, good looks like. I think there is a pinch of reality. I still hopefully think I'm relatively young in the workforce, and I struggle a little bit with work-life balance. You're right, it's not in a day. So the things that are important to me are being able to travel. And I've been really lucky, for example, this year, that actually I've been able to take advantage of a work from abroad policy, and I've gone and worked in America for a month. And I've been able to fit the bits of my life around work from that perspective, but it doesn't have to be it's 9 to 5, but that's the thing that's important to me all right now, because that's flexible and that can change too. But there is a pinch, I think, of reality that we need to give people sometimes. Maybe that's really controversial, but
It's the same with everything, isn't it? I mean, whether you talk about your diet or your exercise or whatever, you've got to have a good balance. I mean, you can't expect one.
And it is, I think it's just finding out what's important to you right now. And if that doesn't fit, if it's incongruent to your life, then you're in the wrong place.
Ricky?
Okay, I've got a question. So it's been really great discussions, thank you. And obviously it's been centred a lot around women being good role models for other women. I've been lucky enough in my career, all but one of my senior managers have been female, and I think women can be positive in the energy and the traits that they give their male colleagues as well, because it's definitely influenced my own leadership style for sure. On the flip side, there's bad leaders as well, right? Both male and female. And only recently I discovered the term Queen Bee syndrome, where some female leaders take on masculine traits and therefore aren't so supportive to not just their female colleagues but to all colleagues, because they feel that they need to get further up by putting on those masculine traits. Have you come across those types of leaders as well as the more inspirational ones?
Nes, do you want to take that one? Because
Yeah.
you
I did.
the first person who said
I did.
I've had some not so good leaders as well.
Yes, so I'm struggling to pin one down, but yes, it's definitely a thing, and sometimes I think it goes back to what I said before, where people have a sense that they have to be a certain way in order to be able to succeed in the workplace. So one of the things that we joke about at work is the fact that Teams has helped a lot of us quite a bit, because you're in a room in a meeting with a bunch of techie, mostly male people talking in 3-letter acronyms, and no one's everyone's just talking over themselves, and you just feel like, can I just want to say, and you can't get a word in. And I think that sometimes there are people who feel like they have to then take on the traits around them in order to be able to push forward. So yeah, I have encountered those, but we've all been talking about modern leadership here, and I think it's something that both the men around us, the women around us, everyone has to help to change that culture. So Madonna, my colleague, and I, we talk about the fact that in Teams meetings, the fact that we can put up our hand helps us a lot, because you look really silly if you ignore the hand that's been up for 5 minutes, and that helps us to break through. So technology is actually helping with that. But yeah, so yes, I certainly have encountered it, but I think it's it's more than just the fact that these women do this. Sometimes we need to ask why, and the why is probably that there's a lot of that about in order for me to survive in this environment, I have to be like this.
That's how they found their way.
Exactly. So hopefully we change that narrative.
Yeah. Jess, have you seen that Queen Bee behavioural syndrome? I know it's a little bit difficult.
I was going to say that.
No, I don't mean you, but there's a lot of people in the organisation who hopefully finish.
No, I've definitely observed it at times, but I would say exactly what Nessa said. I don't think it's a gender-based issue personally. I think it's a cultural issue of what is the behaviours that we're recognising and rewarding and promoting and placing into those roles of leadership. Stereotypically, again, I think typically it has been those people that are the bolder, stronger voices that push their opinion across, that are the ones that get heard, recognised and sort of promoted on through. I don't necessarily think that's a gender-based piece. Maybe you could go back historically and say the workplace was predominantly males and those were some behaviours that were adopted, and then females have maybe come through the workplace and started to continue to adopt those behaviours because that's what they're seeing is rewarded. So I think, I've observed it. I think it's a risk for all of us, but I think it's a cultural risk rather than a gender-based piece.
Okay, thank you.
It'd be interesting to know if there's a king bee syndrome.
Sure, a wasp.
And if it's called out. Yeah.
There are. I'm very sorry. I saw your hand. What I was going to say was, these guys are staying around for a little while, and I'm sure we'll be very happy to carry on talking about some of these subjects. But I do want to free you up to please go and eat food. I'm saying on behalf of Ricky and Lou, who are very keen for us to eat. And please
eat it. So
I'll be there as well. It's fine. Really keen to give you some time to network as well before you are pulled away from your by your trains. But thank you so much to the four of you for sharing your experiences this evening. So honestly and authentically, the word of the evening. And please join me in just thanking you.